First and foremost, I want to thank all the listeners who've stayed with us, and we're like 100-something episodes in, and the show keeps going and growing, and that's largely due to all the support we're getting from everybody. I want to thank everyone who's listened, who's tuned in, who shared the show with people, who's left a review, left stars, subscribed, hit me up directly to tell me, we've gotten a lot of good feedback just, through direct message and stuff like that. So I want to thank everybody for listening and participating. If you want to further, show support for the show, you can check out patreon.com/bigtruth. And you go over there and there's 4 different levels of patronage, for lack of a better word, and ways where you can support there. And each one has its own privileges and access and things like that. And we're going to do a lot more this upcoming year. Promise. This last year was bananas, and didn't get to do some of the special episodes I wanted to do just for the Patreon subscribers, but they're still in the works. So check out patreon.com/bigtruth. If you are into motorcycles at all, or even into old hardcore and stuff, because you will see some kind of iconic things in our gear and stuff. Check out choppahead.com, www.choppahead. Full service, brick and mortar motorcycle shop. And also, we do online parts and swag and stuff like that. So grab a hat, grab a hoodie, grab a shirt, grab some pipes for your lowrider ST or whatever, you know what I mean? Hit us up. If you don't see it on the website, just hit us up if you need a part or whatever. Or you need anything from a full custom chopper built to oil change. We do everything in between. So check us out, choppahead.com, 13 County Road, East Freetown, Massachusetts. Without further ado, let's just jump right into it today. Got my man Scott Vogel from the band Terror, as well as others in, not in the studio. We're broadcasting live from the extra table here at Choppahead Custom Cycles, but we're going to be doing this one via phone, so keep it locked.
Sequence start. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have a liftoff.
Yes, we have liftoff. I want to thank you for tuning into this episode of the Big Truth Podcast, and I'm here with Scott Vogel, who you may know from Terror, or if you go back in time, you may know from Buried Alive, World Be Free. What, Slugfest? I mean, what else? I mean, you probably got like 30 other little bands that we don't know about, and projects here and there. What's happening, man?
Thank you for having me. And yes, no one needs to hear my stupid voice screaming anymore. I've done it for too long.
What did Slugfest? I remember that was all Buffalo based, right? Slugfest.
Yeah, in Buffalo, stuff that people might know, Slugfest, Despair, Buried Alive. Then I moved to LA and did Terror for fucking ever. And you mentioned World Be Free slipped in there for a minute. And then I moved back to Buffalo like almost 3 years ago now. So I'm back here now.
But with Slugfest, did you guys release anything? Because I remember the name, and I remember seeing it. Like, did you guys play a lot or something? Because I was aware of that name, and but I was like, I can't remember any music.
So Slugfest was probably 91 or 92.
Yeah.
For a year or two, no, maybe even a little bit before that. But we have a couple demos out that are pretty bad, and we did a 7-inch on a label called what was it called? Structure Records, which was the singer of Chokehold's label. So
okay.
I'm in Buffalo. They're from Hamilton, which is, it's a different country. but it's only 45 minutes away. So we used to play together a lot. And he asked us to do a 7-inch. Do you know the band Bloodlet from Florida?
Oh yeah. I knew them well. When I lived in Arizona, them dudes were out there, and we used to kick it all the time. And a girl we were all friends with, I think, was going out with one of them, or used to just do their merch or go on tour with them all the time. But yeah, I know Bloodlet.
Cool. They I think Structure Records did the Slugfest 7-inch, a Bloodlet 7-inch, and a tape compilation, and then that was it. So,
okay.
And we never made it to Boston for sure. I think the farthest Slugfest got was maybe Albany, but we play like Syracuse, Rochester, Buffalo, Erie, Pennsylvania, Canada, like Toronto, Hamilton. So just kind of around here. But that, that 7-inch, there's probably 1,000 of them at most, maybe 500. And, like around here, upstate New York, we played some cool shows. We got to play with some cool bands, but we never really did that much.
Yeah, no, I just, because I remember the name, because it was like a hard name, especially back then, late 80s, early 90s, everyone was coming out with like the hard shit, and like, dude, my old band, like from then was Intent to Injure. So I was like, Intent to Injure and Slugfest would have been a fucking good fucking lineup.
Whoa. Intent to Injure has like a drawing of a dog on the cover.
Yeah.
Is that correct?
Yeah, it was like a not a scan, because it was before scan, so it was a pit bull from the Weekly World News that I like cut and pasted.
Overkill Records.
That's right. Yeah, Ron from Brotherhood.
Dude, Ron from Brotherhood.
Yeah.
I gotta wait. Crazy way to tie this all together. You did a record on Nemesis too, right?
Yeah, that was the second. It was us, and then the next release was the Offspring's first 7-inch.
Okay, I got a way to tie this all together.
All right.
So Slugfest is on. We have that 7-inch on Structure.
Yeah.
I love Brotherhood then and now. Those Who Fear Tomorrow comes out on Overkill.
Yep.
So I'm like totally psyched on the label. Ron, the only time I saw Brotherhood played in Buffalo with the Accused, but I was like a little kid.
I was on. That's how I met Ron. Was on that tour when they played the Rat in Boston.
Oh, that's amazing.
Yep.
All right, so we're definitely on the same path here. But the next time I saw Ron, so I saw him on stage, but had no idea who he was. I actually, truth be told, my brother took me to go see the Accused. I had no idea who Brotherhood was. I saw him play, and it was amazing.
Yeah.
He came back here and was tour managing
Orange 9.
Yes.
Yep.
So I saw him at that show, and I gave him the Slugfest 7-inch, like hoping we could get on Overkill Records, and I don't think I ever even talked to him again. And then I Terror played up in Seattle. He came to a couple of our shows, and then he sadly passed the fuck away. That's fucking horrible. What a great guy. He was, I really only knew him towards the end of his life, and I know he was really into fishing, which is something I don't know too much about, but we would talk about fishing and hardcore. But
yeah, I don't know anything about fishing either. So so this won't turn into a fishing podcast. But no, we were Overkill number 1, the first release on that.
Wow, that's awesome.
And then we had a third 7-inch that came out. Do you remember SFT, Striving for Togetherness? They did a lot of New York stuff like later on.
What's is that the guy, Kevin Gill? Was that his label?
Yeah, but it was 2 German guys first, and it started in Germany, and then Kevin Gill came on, and then he was part of the label. Like, he was their US guy. They
did more like the No Redeeming Social Value. Is that right?
Yep, they did that stuff. I think they did. But we were the first release on that label as well. But
damn, super cool.
Yeah, but then we were just knuckleheads, so we didn't do nothing. But yeah, man. So yeah, I mean, it was good times back then. Like late 80s, early 90s is something else. You know what I mean? But yeah, man. So for people, that are, I mean, so many people know Terror. I mean, you guys are playing all the time. Like you're one of those bands that like fucking figured out the formula. You transcend like any like timeline or trends. Like you get new fans, you get the old fans. Like like you keep it moving. You guys are always playing, and you play a club, you play a fest. You like, you know what I mean? Like you guys are always keeping it moving. Like, why don't you tell people a little bit? Like before we get into the bands and stuff, like why don't we get a little bit more into your history? Like, how did you even find your way into like punk rock or hardcore or metal and stuff like that? Like what got you involved in all this stuff? I know you said your brother brought you to the Accused, so maybe it's something with that.
Yeah, sure. So I was born in Buffalo, New York, which is, whenever you say that, someone thinks of New York City, but it's probably like 7 hours from New York. We're almost right on the Canadian border. When I was younger,
are near Niagara Falls.
Yes, very close. When I was younger, I lived with my mom and my two sisters, and we didn't, Buffalo's kind of a smaller city. I think it's the second biggest city in New York State, but it's, not so big. And we live like way out, like in the fucking woods. And I was just into sports, playing basketball, playing all sorts of any sport, maybe causing trouble. And, early on I got into Black Sabbath, AC/DC, but at the same time, stuff like Houdini, Run DMC, and then it went to like crazy hair metal, Twisted Sister, Motley Crue, and stuff like that.
Wasp.
At a certain Wasp, anything kind of not pretty and a little bit aggressive.
Yeah.
But at a certain point, my mom moved to Texas with my two sisters, and I ended up moving in with my father, who had got remarried. So my brother is actually my stepbrother. And then I was living much closer to the city, and he was just he was like really into, like punk stuff, Circle Jerks, Black Flag, Sex Pistols, Exploited, all sorts of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And so I'm like in a totally new environment, living, school, everything. So he's actually 4 months younger than me. So whenever I tell this story, everyone's imagining my older brother, but he's actually a little bit younger than me.
Gotcha.
So I'm just kind of following in his footsteps, but the punk thing never really landed with me. For some reason, Social Distortion, Mommy's Little Monster, I really liked that record.
Yeah.
And I would go to shows. I saw a lot of punk shows. We'd see like the Goo Goo Dolls, who are from Buffalo. They would play like, we've seen them in like a 100 cap room with like 75 people there. And I'd go to Butthole Surfer shows, Dead Milkmen. But at this point,
back then, you just kind of went to everything, right? Like I remember that. You know what I mean? The same thing.
Yeah,
just going to everything.
Yeah, we would go see like, I don't know what you call these bands, but almost like garage punk, like almost just like rock bands, but they were like weirdos. Yeah, we kind of anything we would find, and
like the Dickies, things like that.
Right, and we're like 13 and 14 at this time, so there are things that we don't even know about. Like I know right before I got into hardcore, there was a Youth of Today Warzone show close to me in the suburbs at like a floor show. I've seen videos of it at a VFW hall that like we just didn't know, and we were already kind of like around stuff. So if someone would have put that flyer in our hands, we would have been there. But it just didn't happen. It wasn't in the cards. But then eventually we saw DRI, Gangrene, Goo Goo Dolls. I can't remember who else was on the show. So I kind of make that like my first real hardcore show. And then like at that show, we got a flyer to 7 Seconds. And I think for me, the punk thing, like, like the looking crazy, anarchy, mohawk, dressing crazy. That was like never my vibe.
Okay.
But as soon as I kind of saw hardcore and it was a little more collegiate, and like that's kind of like 1987, 1988 when like Youth Crew came in. I've never been straight edge, but like that kind of spoke to me because I was such a jock. Like people, like when you're a hardcore kid or like a punk and people call you a jock and that's supposed to be an insult. I was like, yeah, I am a jock. I love sports.
Sure.
But then from there, like I remember a kid we used to hang out with gave me a dub cassette, and it had Victim in Pain on one side, Don't Forget the Struggle, Warzone on the other side. And then we found out about like New York Hardcore and Revelation Records, and that was it. Like from that moment forward, all we did was try to get to every fucking show, find out about every band, buy records. We didn't have like a ton of money or anything, so it was all like sporadically when we could. And then eventually my brother and myself start Slugfest, and it's kind of never stopped. He's still doing band, and we got really lucky in life. Like I look back on it. I mean, I'm going from day one to present,
yeah.
But like somehow I've, lived off music, and I haven't really worked a job in a long time, which is amazing. And he's a tattoo artist. So like, he tattoos, and, he's a little more domestic than me. He's got a family and daughters, and he's married and owns a home. I kind of still live like a fucking pirate, but we kind of won in life. Neither of us really got sucked into the real world.
Yeah, yeah. So like going back to like Slugfest days, like how crazy is it to think like that era to think that you like as a 50-year-old man or whatever like would be living on like doing hardcore as a living? Like that's insanity for a kid to think about, right? Like especially back then. Especially back then,
And honestly, even when Terror started, I don't think any of us ever thought a lot of things. Like we never thought we'd live off the band. We never thought we'd be a band for 20 plus years that put out like fucking 8 records. And it's a, if you think about this, in the big scheme of things, there's, I don't even know, probably 10 hardcore bands that actually live off their bands, like Sick of It All, AF, Madball, maybe Comeback Kid. Like maybe it's a little bigger than if I really put my mind to it, but it's just.
But it's a
like
handful. It's definitely a handful. It's not par for the course.
Right, and I mean, I can't speak for all those bands, but it's a grind. You miss out on a lot. You live in a fucking van with a bunch of dudes. Every bit of it takes a toll on you physically and mentally. But, it's like one of those things, like the grass is always greener. There's been lots of times where I'm just like, oh my God, I wish I didn't have to go on tour. Even to the point where I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I have to go to Japan again and tour, which is horrible to even say it. But the reality is like, when you're going to Japan for like the 4th time and you're just like, oh my God, I've been around these dudes. Like I love everyone in Terror, and we've come to a place where, we've all learned each other's good and bad and how to not push each other's buttons. And we're all like mature now, but there was times where it's just insanity.
Sure.
But it's a grind, but yeah, like, I'm also at the same time like the luckiest fucking person in the world, because I am not fucking talented at all. I can scream and kind of jump around. Like that's literally my contribution to Terror. Well,
there's not everyone can scream and jump around for that long. That's where your athletics from like being a jock like come in to help you out. You got good breath control and wind and you know what I mean? You said you played basketball, so you should have good jumps and everything, right?
at one time.
Yeah.
They're getting less good as the time goes on.
Well, you probably got a good backlog of photos you can always go through to use, right? Like for the back of the shirt.
You can always log back to the classic Terror photos. This one looks good.
Yeah. But you know, this is a question, and usually we address it later. But you've kind of like come from then to now. Like, I'm always interested in, I don't know, the element like talking to lifers, like what keeps you in this, like, right? Like what makes you like go, all right, like when you're saying, fucked, we got to go on tour again, I don't want to do it. Like what pushes you to do it? Like, you know, cause obviously it's like anything, when something becomes a job, you know, it gets a little, you know, it's not as, you know, can't always be as entertaining as when it's like a hobby or fun, but like, you know, like what keeps you just going and like doing hardcore full time? Like what do you think drives you to do that?
To get the ugly point out of the way, it really is something that I've put all my eggs into one basket, and thank God it's still I guess the word is profitable. So I think, you know, part of it is, imagine if I just stopped doing this right now, I'd be like, it's really scary to think about. I know a lot of people, so I'm sure I would figure it out with getting some people to point me in the right direction, or you know, I know a lot of people that do a lot of things, so I'm sure I'd be fine. But when you put something into something for so long, it's really hard to just walk away from it. In a lot of ways, you know, monetarily, who I am, like a lot of times I'm on tour and I'm like, oh God, I would just love to be home. But then you go home and I'm here for 2 months and I'm like, man, get me out of here. This is boring. I need some insanity in my life.
Sure.
But all that aside, like that's like the kind of the ugly stuff you don't really want to talk about. But I drank heavily for many years, and for the last couple years, I've really laid off drinking, almost to the point where I do not drink at all anymore. And it's giving me a whole new perspective on how amazing touring can be and traveling can be and spending time with people and getting to see people all over the world. And there was years where I was drunk and oblivious to a lot of great opportunities that were being handed to me that I drank my way through. So not drinking has made the last couple of years like a touring rebirth, almost to the point where my band, you know, obviously being around my band and they see me drunk 30 days in a row and hungover and in a bad mood and just doing stupid shit and breaking things and stuff like that. That's like not good. And now they're like, dude, shut the fuck up. Now I'm like up at 8:00. I'm like cleaning everything. I'm like always on the go, and I'm like always hyper now. So that's like a new rebirth for me that has made touring, you know, I want to say fun again. And another part of it is that just hardcore is like the coolest fucking thing in the world. Like there's still like somehow, some way, Terror still has really cool shows, and I still think we're relevant, and I still think we're putting out good music, and I still like seeing young bands, and I still like going to shows and seeing my old friends and checking out what like younger kids are doing now, and it's just super fucking cool to me still.
Absolutely, dude. I get it. You know, for sure. And then it's like also like, but it also sounds like, you know, like you said, if you needed to find something else, you could, but you've also kind of put yourself where you didn't leave any options, so you got to do it, right? But do you think that's like because because you want to, like, you know what I mean, like subconsciously, like you didn't leave other options because you want to keep it like that's what we do.
This isn't exactly answering your question, but other people in Terror, like Nick, our drummer, he's opened a studio and records other bands. Martin, our guitarist, he does like a lot of graphic stuff and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And I think that's maybe because I'm like the control freak that always has. I'm always involved in Terror, like everything we're doing, because like if I don't have my say in it, it won't go right. Now I'm not saying that's reality. I'm saying that's like the way my crazy brain works.
Sure.
So I think that my insanity of steering the ship all the time, giving them some options to spread their wings and look into other things. Okay. And I've just always focused on terror. So it's kind of handcuffed me, and maybe that does play into your thing, like what you're saying, like subconsciously, this is all I want because I don't want to go anywhere else.
Yeah. So let's go. Let's dial it back a little bit. Like you know, we were talking about Slugfest. Like, how did it go? I know. So you got your taste, your first band and stuff. Like, how did things go from there? Like, I know you had a couple bands before you did Terror and stuff. Like, how did you even get hooked up with like Terror, being from Buffalo? And did you move out to LA and meet up with dudes, or was it like something that you moved out there for the band?
So I did Slugfest. That broke up. Just like actually, what happened was Snapcase. This is like where the immature person in me would say stole our drummer and ruined our band, because that's how I felt for a long time.
Yeah.
But like drummer Tim was Slugfest was really good, and he was like the only straight edge dude in the band, and the rest of us partied a lot, and we were kind of fuck ups, and he was definitely the best musician. And Snapcase, signed to Victory and was kind of like taking over the world.
Yeah, they were popping off back then. Yeah,
they asked him to play. He quit and went to them, and I was a little bitter for a while, but honestly, this is like fucking 30 years ago, maybe longer than 30 years ago. So that breaks up. I started a band called Despair. At that time, the Buffalo hardcore scene was so good.
Yeah, you guys had your own thing going over there for sure for a while.
Just thinking of Boston, like Slapshot shows in Buffalo were insane. Like some of the craziest shows I've ever seen, because they drew such a crazy crowd. I saw Eye for an Eye here, Wrecking Crew. Do you know that band Kingpin?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I saw them in Syracuse. I used to love that band. So the scene in Buffalo was great. And at that time, bands just are around, put out a demo, the Slugfest breaks up, but there's like 100 other kids in Buffalo that are in bands that are all breaking up. So me and some friends start a band called Despair. We do a little more than Slugfest. We actually did couple tours. We actually did a full U.S. tour with Hatebreed.
Okay.
Went to Europe twice. That breaks up kind of like the same thing.
What was the year range of Despair like?
That's like probably 95 to 97, something like that.
All right.
So we break up. Then we go to Europe. Two dudes come home, and I think they just realize that living in a van, and like these bands are making no money. These bands are losing money.
This is old style touring. Yeah, like in a literal van, not a transit van or something nice. But
this is just this is the real shit. Then soon after that, it's kind of the same story. But this one I didn't start. Buried Alive started with the three main members started Buried Alive, and one of the dudes was someone that I used to drink with a lot because he liked to drink too, and they were like writing stuff. If anyone that knows Slugfest and Despair, that's kind of like more straightforward, generic, traditional hardcore. Buried Alive's a little more don't even know, like a little noisy, a little like it's weirder than my normal taste. And that's because I didn't start the band. They had it started without me. And they asked me to sing for them a few times, but I was kind of like, just every band I do just breaks up. Fuck it. And then eventually I could see that they were pretty fucking good. So I agreed to do that. We immediately got on Victory Records, which at the time was the best place to be for a hardcore band. Did a good amount of touring. We did a cool tour with VOD, Scarhead, Candiria. Who else did Buried Alive tour with? Breen doesn't really work. Converge took us out. The last tour we ever did was with Death Threat. So, we did a bunch. We were on Victory. It was never really, Victory had its like big premier bands like Earth Crisis, Strife. We were never in that boat, and we weren't as good as those bands, but just like a couple tiers under that. What happens with that was I just didn't like where the band was going. And I've said on podcasts and interviews before some negative things about the band and the direction of the band, but I've moving back to Buffalo, I've reconnected with the people in the band, and they kind of dispute what I say. So maybe it's probably somewhere in between their version and my version.
Sure.
And something I'll make clear right here. There's a pattern why all these bands are breaking up, and why I called myself a control freak for Terror, because I'm known to be a little bit crazy my way. I'm always right. I know more about how this band should be than you. Listen to me. So I've contributed to all these bands breaking up by being a fucking asshole and thinking that I know more than everyone. That's a definite through line. So I actually am the one that quits Buried Alive. I'm at the time I'm dating a girl that lives in Chicago. We had agreed that when she didn't really want to live in Buffalo, I didn't really want to live in Chicago. We just decided when that ended, we were going to move out to California. And we eventually got to California, and Terror started.
And you guys, you just did a Buried Alive show not too long ago, though, right? Like a couple months ago?
Yeah, we played for the first time, I don't know the year, but maybe like 2018, we played This Is Hardcore. And this is when I was still living in LA. And then when I moved back here, I'd say since 2018, we've played 10, 15 shows.
Cool.
It made it a lot, all those guys, everyone in the band besides me has like kids. Trying to think, they're all married. Some of them own businesses. Some of them they all have real jobs. So it's kind of like, maybe we try to book a weekend a couple times a year, or a festival will hit us up. We're actually playing, Buried Alive playing in Boston at the Triple B America's Hardcore Fest on December 2nd.
Yep.
That'll be the first time we've been in Boston in, I don't know, forever, 20 years, something like that.
Yeah, and for you listeners, you got like a month to get it together. So make sure you hit out there, right? But yeah, so no, it's good. So it's so has it been fun, like reconnecting with them and playing that stuff? Obviously, you guys have done a bunch of shows, so it can't suck, right?
Yeah, I mean, it was the way. So I quit Buried Alive in a really shitty way. I knew we did a tour with Death Threat, and I knew when I got home I was going to quit. So I think I probably had a chip on my shoulder the whole tour. The day we got home, I quit, and I fucking packed up my shit and I moved to LA, and kind of like in a shitty way. Like I was just like, fed up with a lot of things that were going on in the band. Two of the members I stayed in touch with and saw pretty often. Two of them I did not talk to for a long time. World Be Free played in Buffalo with Judge, and the two dudes that I hadn't talked to in a long time were both there. Trying to think. I got no shame in my game. We started drinking. We ended up in the basement of the club doing other things, and we just laughed our way through the bullshit we had been carrying on our backs for 20 years.
Yeah.
And it just led to Joe Hardcore, who does This Is Hardcore, had asked a few times if Buried Alive would play This Is Hardcore, and I just said it's not going to happen. But once I knew that, we buried the hatchet, I said, "Hey, Joe, there's a chance." He's like, "I'd love to have you." I went to those guys, and this is when I'm still living in LA. So this is all kind of a distant thing. Then when I moved back, it made it really easy, because even if it wasn't band stuff, we'd, watch football games together. Like, we got together at the guitarist's house and watched the football. He's got his garage turned into a dude pad.
Yeah,
what do you call that?
Man cave.
Like man cave. That's exactly.
Dude pad, whatever, you know what I mean?
Stuff like that. And, and now we've kind of done some road trips together, and now certain people are like, "Dude, I don't even care if we do this ever again," so it's it's recycling, and we kind of hit most of the spots where we really wanted to, and just see what happens.
It's cool though, but it's cool that you guys could do that and remove all like the sourness, you know what I mean? And even if it ends now, it ends on a way better note.
Yeah, for sure. That's something that I've said to them and other people, like, the shows aside and the stuff. It's just like, to be able to know that all these people are my friends again, and we can text and laugh about things, and having stupid stuff in the van on the way to road trips and stuff like that. That's the most important thing to me, because I get my fair share of shows with Terror more than any person should ever have.
Yeah.
So it's not so much that to me. It's just like reconnecting and having fun.
Sure, yeah, because Terra's a touring ass band, man. Like you guys are always out. That's why it took so long to get for us to do this, because you guys kept going out.
we just, thank God, completed like 5 months of almost 5 months of so much touring back to back to back. We haven't done that much in a long time.
Yeah,
and thank God that I'm not drinking, because there's been times where I would have drank for those 5 months, and I don't think I'm fucking 50 years old now. I don't think I could handle it anymore.
Yeah, I'm sure your liver thanks you every morning. But do you find you said you find that now you're getting up and you're cleaning and you got all this energy? Is that helping like your stage show?
It's super weird, because when I first stopped drinking, it was so weird that everything else was great, but actually going out on stage was like a whole new world. Like, actually being able to see everything that goes on. I'd have to look in everybody's face. Before, if you're like a little bit buzzed or really buzzed, I would just go for it. And, a lot of times my band would let me know that I was sloppy and fucking called out the wrong side. I've done everything stupid you could do while you're drunk on stage. But my energy was always really good. I kind of felt like a deer in headlights at first.
Because you were more present. Yeah,
I couldn't shift my brain into like insanity mode. So it took some time to get there. I think I've navigated how to do it completely sober.
Yeah.
And it's weird. Like, you know, I've never, I'll still take a beer out on stage with me. And, you know, usually I'll take a sip of it and just leave it there on stage. And like, you know, I don't think I'll ever be fully straight. Like, that's just not me.
Yeah.
But at this point, it's just like, I mean, even if I drank 5 beers, that wouldn't do anything. Well, maybe at this point, but usually that wouldn't even do anything to me.
Yeah. Does it, like, as just like a vocalist type question, going out sober, does it affect how you break in your voice, or do you do like warm ups and stuff beforehand, or do you just go out and just like fucking turn it on? Because I find that like having something carbonated does help. You know what I mean? Like break shit in a little quicker. You know what I mean? I don't know why. It just seems like that to me. But does that, like, because you go out, you know, your voice is full throttle, right? So like, you know, like, what do you do to kind of break that in before a set, or do you just kind of go right out and go for it?
I've done lots of years where I wouldn't do anything. I would just drink and then go play.
Yeah.
And sometimes I would lose my voice. Sometimes I wouldn't. And it's always been kind of just like, my voice isn't that pretty anyway, so it's just less powerful. Now I've actually started like doing some, just like kind of warming my voice up. I like doing some humming or whatever, and sucking on some throat things, and I kind of like I was just saying, like I can't, you know, also all this stuff I'm like blaming on the drinking, but I'm also now 50. So it's hard for me to just sit around and then jump up and go out stage and start playing. So sometimes I jump rope now, like to try to get a sweat going and get my fucking heart pumping.
Yeah.
As for my throat though, it's really, for me, it's like either I can, you know, like, first couple shows I'll be fine. Maybe like show 5, 6, and 7, I lose my voice a little bit, and then once it comes back, I can really just go forever. It's kind of like, you know, if you jog, you're going to be sore the next couple days, but then once you start jogging every day, your body gets used to it.
Yeah.
But sometimes, yeah, it's weird. Like, we did a long tour. The first tour of this 5-month things was like a really long tour in the US. And what I just told you was not true. Like, in the middle of it, I lost my voice and couldn't get it back. It was like really weird. So I don't have any answers. It's just like, luckily I don't really sing. So it's whatever fucking happens.
Yeah. So you get back from Buried Alive tour. You and your chick at the time just head out to California, and then how does you know, when does Terror come on the scene?
So this is really weird. Do you know the band 10 Yard Fight?
Yes, of course.
Okay, so I'm actually living in Arizona for less than a year with my girlfriend at the time, and my friend from Buffalo had he got hit by a car when he was younger, so he had some money from a law, or like a
settlement type of thing.
Settlement. He moved out to Arizona and bought a brand new house. When Buried Alive was on that tour, I told him that, you know, I'm quitting the band as soon as I get home, and I'm going to move to California with my girlfriend. And he said, "Why don't you?" And we didn't know we were going to move to LA, San Diego, San Francisco. We just knew California. So we went and stayed at his house, and we investigated San Francisco, San Diego. We were just taking trips there to see which we liked the best. When I went to LA, I stayed. This is actually Orange County. Indecision Records is done by this guy, Dave Mandel. He had a house, and my friend Larry, also from Buffalo, that worked at Revelation Records at the time, was living with him. So we stayed there as we were like checking out LA if that's where we wanted to move. And he gave me a tape, and it was No Warning, who I had already known because they're from Toronto, and I knew them and their band before that. And on the other side was a band called Carry On, who I'd never heard before. And my friend Larry was like, I think you're going to really like these. So I went and I listened to this Carry On record, and it was fucking unbelievable. And I, like, at the time, I didn't know how this was going to affect my life. So I'm back in Arizona.
Where in Arizona were you staying?
Mesa.
Okay.
So I get a phone call on my answering machine. This is pre-cell phone. It's John LaCroix from 10 Yard Fight, who I know, but I don't really know him. And he's like, hey, Scott, I think he thought I already moved to LA because that, you know, like we're telling people we're moving to LA. We're just figuring out how we're going to do this. He's like, hey, Scott, I know I heard you moved to LA. I just started this new band with the drum, and Carry On had just broken up. So they put out this amazing record and they broke up. I started this new band with the drummer and guitarist of Carry On. We want you to sing for us. So I'm like, oh, fuck. And at this time, I'm moving across the country. I've been in 3 bands in Buffalo. They all do some stuff and break up. And I'm like, hardcore stupid. I'm not meant to be in a band. I'm just going to be a normal person. And I'm like, fuck. So but this Carry On record's so good. So I drive to LA to meet them and like, I don't know if I'm trying out for them or they're going to jam for me. I don't know. Let's just say I'm trying out for them. I go out there. John LaCroix never shows up, but Nick and Todd, who are the 2 people from Carry On, the original guitarist and drummer of Terror, they fucking jam some songs. They're perfect. I think we went to they're a little younger than me. I think we went to a strip club that night. So I'm like, all right, these dudes aren't like total squares. I think we can figure life out. And, that's when Terror was born. I went back to Arizona. I said, hey, this is really cool. I want to do this. And that's when it wasn't San Diego or San Francisco, moved to LA, Terror was born. And so any band I did before that put out maybe a 7-inch in an LP, like Buried Alive, and they all broke up. And somehow Terror's lasted 20 fucking 2 years or whatever.
Yeah, and you got like 8 records, right? Like
so many.
7, 8.
Probably like 8 full-length live records, comps, fucking cover songs. It's a lot.
Yeah, it's quite a discography, man, for sure. It's 20-something years of being active, right? Like, what's the longest kind of hiatus Terror had, or is there any hiatus?
Fucking COVID.
Yeah.
So the only thing that could stop us.
Is that what spawned the move back to Buffalo?
Yeah, for sure. It was something I've been thinking about for a while. Like, you know, when I moved to LA, it was the hardcore scene out there is fucking amazing, always.
Yeah. And
it was, you know, a great place for Terror to start. And I was a little more outgoing then than I am now. But, you know, I'm like, I hate the beach. I'm not like I'll go to Sabres games because they're not crowded, but I'll never go to a Bills game because that's like 50,000 people. I'm saying this because LA is so crowded.
Oh yeah.
After a while, it just wore me down, like the traffic and people and I just wanted to move to somewhere smaller and a little more calmer. So it was something in the back of my mind, but Terror is so like, you know, you're on tour so much, you can think about things. To actually move across the country, I just never had the time. So when everything stopped and I really had a chance to evaluate my life, packed up the U-Haul and here I am.
Yeah. Plus, cost of living in Buffalo is going to be way better. You know what I mean?
There's some wonderful things about LA.
Sure.
Mexican food, I miss it a lot. There's people I miss. I'm much more of a Buffalo person than a Los Angeles person.
It also seems like, and this is probably stuff you kind of were hitting on, is like, I used to go to LA a lot, and then, LA now, or even just pre-COVID, was vastly like bigger and more crowded than it was even 10 years ago, and more expensive and everything. Like I was thinking of moving to LA, because you could get apartments in Hollywood like super affordable, and now those apartments that were like $600-$800 are like fucking a few grand, right? Like it's like everywhere. It just went bananas over the last 10 years.
My rents out there, for as long as I can remember. So let's say the last 10 years I was out there was like 1-bedroom apartment, just not a shitty apartment in a decent place, was like $1,600 to $1,800. I could have bought like 3 houses in Buffalo if I
for that price.
If I stayed here the whole time.
Yeah. And it's like, and nowadays with the way recording and all the luxuries we kind of have, like technologically wise, like so many bands I know, people live all over the place now, so it's not as big of a deal. Like you probably got to get out there, right, to do some practicing every now and then, or when you guys are writing, or just before a tour. But like you can live wherever and still have an active band.
Yeah, we've got one member in Toronto, one in Maine, and only one person's in LA now, and our drummer just bought a house in Oregon, so we're like one person in Los Angeles at this point.
You guys are really spread out. Yeah.
We got it. We even got someone in a different country.
Yeah. You can't even get 2 guys together like one place just to jam out some stuff. Like everybody's somewhere else. Like, but yeah, I mean, it all works out now. And how does it work now for you guys, right? Like, so like, I know you're kind of like in the middle of things, like, but when you go to work on some new material, like how are you guys going to do it? You all going to get together somewhere and just start rehearsing, or does someone send a track around, or like, how's it work with that?
Something you touched on before, we never practice. When we start a tour, we'll figure out the set list through text message. We'll figure out some things, and luckily everyone in the band's kind of responsible and a pretty decent musician. So maybe the first 2 shows are kind of a little rougher than they could be, but we don't practice. We show up, and day one, whatever happens.
Yeah. And plus you guys play so much that it's you don't really need to. Yeah.
Yeah. For writing, what we're going to do now, like the last record was all done during COVID. So that was a whole totally different thing. This one, we actually, we just got to the point. So we just did all this touring. So we're going to start thinking about writing some new songs, but with so much material out, there's never a rush. It's like, I'd rather people want a new Terror record than be like, oh, these motherfuckers got another record out. So
yeah.
It's kind of like do it as it comes. But
which is good because you guys have got a 20-something year history and you have 8 records out. So that doesn't mean you're pushing one out every 6 months. Like you're taking your time to do it.
Right. Yeah. I'd rather wait till some people want it. We got a weekend of shows in LA, in Southern California, in January. So everyone's flying out to that. So we said, we're all going to stick around and jam there for like 3 or 4 days. There's always people writing stuff and I don't know. I'm bad at technology and all that stuff, but these guys can program the drums, write the riffs, put the bass to it. So there's all sorts of stuff going on with sending things, emails, files. I'm always writing stuff in my phone, like when I have lyric ideas. Sometimes I'll get crazy and do a voice note of like what I think is like a cool riff, and the dudes that actually write the songs probably make me feel good and say they'll give it a try and stuff like that. But yeah, with technology, it's pretty easy, and we kind of got our formula. Like, we're a band that doesn't change too much, so you kind of know what you're going to get with Terror. So we're kind of comfortable with that. So it's kind of one direction, and we're always just trying to make sure it hits hard and it's intense, and there's no filler. If it's not going to like move the room in one way or another, just throw it in the garbage and write something that's a little crazier.
Yeah. Well, yeah, what you said is true, but then also every now and then you throw a loop, like you get fucking dude from Cannibal Corpse to do a guest spot or something like that. That'll throw you for a little loop.
You know what's crazy about that? When so Todd, who I talked about, that started Terror. So Nick and myself are the two original members. Todd started the band. He really early in the band, like our first time to Europe was with Biohazard, and we're like, living the dream. We're on a bus with Biohazard. None of us have ever played shows that big. And he just took me and Nick aside and just realized, he's like, dude, touring is not for me. So he left the band really early. And, we've always maintained a great relationship. He started that band Nails, which is fucking awesome.
Yeah. That shit's hard.
Yeah, but if you notice, they never tour because he just doesn't like touring. So on the last record, he produced the last record. He really he did a lot. He helped us write it. He produced it. He played on it. So it was kind of like him. He's definitely not back in the band, but he really was like back in the mix. And he was the person that suggested Corpse Grinder from Cannibal Corpse singing on a song. And the funny thing about it was, before that, not the same song, so it would have been a totally different vibe, I suggested trying to get Milo from the Descendants. So we're having one conversation about Milo, and then it switches to Corpse Grinder.
Hell yeah. Dude, that would be the best concept record. Like, you just do a concept record of like guest spots of people you would never expect or like suspect, and just make it fucking badass. But everything I hear about like Corpse Grinder, he's like he's into like Warzone and shit, right? Like he's into hardcore, right?
He doesn't text me all the time, but he'll text me like once every 2 months. He's always drinking because he'll take pictures of what he's listening to and what he's drinking. And he's like, it's always Cro-Mags, Youth of Today, Warzone, like mostly New York stuff.
Yeah.
Gorilla Biscuits. The way we really got down with him is we did this tour called Sounds of the Underground, and it was Cannibal Corpse, Terror, Lamb of God, all these bands. Madball was on it.
Yep.
And someone on the tour, maybe it was him, someone had a boombox and tapes, and we would just sit around and listen to New York hardcore and drink and sing all these songs. I was like, wow. And Cannibal Corpse is from Buffalo.
Okay.
So their guitarist, Rob, they actually played The Accused. That, I could be wrong, but that might be Cannibal Corpse's first show ever with The Accused and Brotherhood. For some reason, I think that is, but I could have that wrong.
Oh, that's next time you talk to him, you should get that, find out if that's real, because that'd be fucking crazy. That's crazy, yeah.
So I knew the guitarist Rob, and then I met George on that tour, and it's pretty cool. And I think when his brain goes to crazy hardcore and alcohol, he thinks of me and writes me, and I'm always happy to, he'll send me text messages of lyrics and stuff. But yeah, it's always New York.
Yeah. So isn't it funny, right? Like we're a similar age. You remember a time when like punk and hardcore and metal were all kind of separate entities. They might have done shows together and stuff, but like you know, there was kind of divides, right? And it's cool now that so much stuff is blurred because like, you know, like so for example, like a good friend of mine is the new singer of Metal Church, and he loves you guys. He was talking about, he's like, dude, because we were at the gym the other day. He's like, dude, I'm listening to Terror. It's fucking blah, blah. And I'm like, Scott's coming on the podcast this week, and he'd been on my podcast before and stuff. But you know, that's like power metal stuff, like, you know what I mean? But like, there's so much like almost camaraderie around all these like underground genres. Whereas like I remember when they were all kind of separate kind of entities and dudes didn't really get along as much, you know what I mean? And that's one cool thing to kind of see through the years, how things just kind of melded a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, like you said earlier, me and a lot of hardcore kids would go to every show. We would go to the Cannibal Corpse shows and DSI and all that stuff. And, you know, we'd go to punk shows, but you'd really kind of, you know, wear your hardcore uniform with your shaved head and kind of stand back. And it definitely was separate, but you want, like, there weren't, you know, now, even in Buffalo, there's like 3 shows a week. When you add in all the different types of like underground music and like all the more Warped Tour type stuff, there's so many shows. But back then there was like maybe one hardcore show a month. So of course you want to go to these other places to get out of your house and see people and stuff. But you definitely did sort of, this is my thing and you have your thing, but keep it a little bit separate. But another funny note is, we played a festival in Europe this summer. I believe it was called Alcatraz Festival. And Metal Church definitely played on a much bigger stage, but Terror and Drain played on a certain stage, and we all went over and checked out Metal Church for, you know, I think we caught half their set because Drain was playing during the first set. So tell your friend that we were checking them out. I think it was called Alcatraz Fest in Belgium, but that all could be wrong.
Yeah, no, I know the name of that fest, but I don't remember where it is. But yeah, that's the other thing too, is like you go to Europe, like these fests meld so much stuff together, you know what I mean? And it's been that way for a long time, but it's like you go see Iron Maiden and Terror and, you know, the Agnostic Front, you know what I mean? Like fucking in Dio or something, you know, like, well, not now, but you know, back in the day. But what do you, like, you guys play all kinds of different, you know, venues, or like, you know, everything from like club shows to fests. Like, and I know they're all got their own pros and cons, but like in your heart of hearts, like what do you like best? Do you like playing the big fest, the big shows, the big stages, or you still in the clubs?
No, I'll take the small club. Not even a big club. I'll take the small 200-300 pack cap club with the small stage. It's just, I'll always be that person. There's a beauty to playing one of those festivals with a barricade and all those bouncers and weird things going on, and being able to like conquer one of those shows and still get, it's not the same energy, but get that energy going. When you do that with that many people, it's really beautiful. But I'll still take the tiny club with the people in my face, and you know, there's a certain danger that comes with it, because you know, at any point someone could jump on my head or do something stupid. But that's just the person I'm always going to be, and that's that. And as uncomfortable it is when I go to a show, that's the show I want to go to too. You know.
Absolutely. No, I get it 100%. That's because that's like the origin, right? Like that's where we cut our teeth. And
yeah, it's still just the energy and the vibe.
And the participation, whether you want to or not, like you're in it. It's funny because you said you were talking about Slapshot shows in Buffalo and stuff back in the day, or just shows back in the day. Like going to see Slapshot at the Rat in like 1987. There was no sidelines. You were in it. Like it was fucking bananas, right? Like or you know, any host of shows. Like, you know, I'm just throwing that name out, but you know, what's your this might be a weird big question, but like, you know, we've gone similar paths. Like, obviously I'm not in a band like Terror, like that big, but I mean, just in life, like being around this stuff, what do you still have, like, is like that, like Revelation New York, like the first like few Revelation 7-inch, is that still like your era? Is there like a era that you like will always fall back on as being like your favorite time or your favorite era for hardcore, or like or something that you just more identify with or anything?
Yeah, for sure. Like that early or late 80s New York stuff is like, you know, I love everything. Like Chain Strength from California is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
I love Brotherhood. I love Cleveland stuff. You know, there's great stuff. There's great stuff in Europe, but my brain I cannot imagine New York City, like from 88 to 92, the hardcore in hip hop coming out of there. It's unbelievable. And like, it's all unique and everyone had a different style and they all have, all the cool names weren't taken yet. So they all have cool names. It's unbelievable.
Yeah, I would, like, it's funny. I tend to agree. Like, you know, I have an affinity for the early shit that I didn't really get involved with, but like, you know, like the 81 to 83 shit, like I love that. Right. But you know, I started coming around 85, but like the late 80s for hardcore and hip hop, 100% I'll agree. And not just New York, like everywhere, right? Like think about LA hip hop in the late 80s. You got like NWA, things like that. You know, DOC, stuff like that. You know, like everything was just popping, like bananas. Like what a creative time, like especially like 88 to like 91, right? Like what a massive time for music. Like what are some of the records that once you put on, you know, changed the course of your life? What are some of the heavy hitters for you? Like for me, like when I put the Judge 7-inch on, I was like, what the fuck, dude? I can't even fucking, because I got it in the mail from Schism, like as a kid, and I remember putting it on in my room and not even knowing what the fuck to expect. I was like, what the fuck? Like it just, you know, that lump starts in your stomach, goes up in your throat and shit. Like Cro-Mags, Age of Quarrel did that. You know, obviously, you know, whatever. But what are some of those for you, like that like still like were like, fuck, this changed my life?
Warzone, Don't Forget the Struggle.
Absolutely.
Leeway, Born to Expire. I mean, all that stuff. Victim in Pain, Killing Time, Bright Side. But you know,
Break Down the Walls.
Also, so good. I'll take We're Not in This Alone over that, but both of them are like
really?
Perfect.
Wow.
I like.
What makes you say that though? Like, before you go on, but like, there's not many people I think that would say We're Not in This Alone over Break Down the Walls. Like, what is it? Just because you heard that other one first, or like?
No, I heard Break Down the Walls first. I just think it's better, and the layout's cooler, and you know, maybe I'm not really into punky stuff.
Yeah,
I know I just said Victim in Pain, and that's super punky.
Yeah.
But I like stuff with a little bit of metallic punch to it. And I think, you know, We're Not in This Alone is definitely not metallic, but Break Down the Walls is really...
Break Down the Walls could have been...
primal.
Could have came out in 83 or 82. Like, that could have been on Exclaim Records.
I mean, I still love it, but I'll say We're Not in This Alone. But I love, like Can I Say by Dag Nasty. That's one of my favorite records ever.
Yeah.
I'm into like a lot of melodic stuff too. Turning Point, all the Turning Point stuff. And even like stuff like Texas the Reason and Split Lip and I guess what you call early emo stuff. That like Lifetime, that Sunny Day Real Estate, that's the stuff I listen to all the time. Like, you know, of course there's times when I need to listen to Madball.
Yeah.
But at this point in my life, it's very far and few in between. It's like a lot of podcasts and a lot of like, emo is such like an ugly word, and you think of things that I'm not talking about, but like those bands I named like the early Get Up Kids I love and stuff like that. That's the stuff I really listen to a lot.
Cool. Well, hell yeah, man. What kind of podcast you listen to?
Do you know this podcast, The Cypher? It's a hip hop podcast.
Yeah. Yep.
That's I think it stopped maybe 5 years ago, but there's like
I remember
hundreds of episodes of that. It's The Cypher for anyone that doesn't know it. It's unbelievable. So a lot of hip hop stuff. Drink Champs is great.
As far as hip hop goes, what's your era of hip hop? Same thing, 88?
I would say more early 90s, like Mobb Deep, Gangstar,
Okay.
Capone and Noriega,
all the Queens, like kind of more ignorant stuff, like
Queensbridge is my favorite. Tragedy Gaddafi,
yeah.
Black Poet, all that stuff.
Royal
that's
Flush.
That's probably all my real favorite stuff. But and you know, I obviously love like KRS-One and Rakim and stuff. It's kind of almost like hardcore. Like it's got a little grimier.
Yeah,
I don't want to say it's, you know, like the early, like even the early Gangstar is my favorite, but the early Gangstar stuff, it's a little too happy.
Sure.
I want a little more gutter in it, and you know, Nas, obviously, stuff like that. But I like, if you go West Coast, like Dilated Peoples, Living Legends, AC Alone. There's a lot of good shit everywhere, but again, it's mostly New York.
Let me tell you about a show. Do you remember a club in Providence called the Living Room?
I've never been there, but I remember it on flyers, and I've heard about it many times.
So I only asked because I remember we were talking before the podcast, like you knew Babyhead and stuff. One of my favorite hip hop shows ever is I saw Nas open up for J. Rue and Gangstar at the Living Room. And Nas had just dropped a single. He was still a kid, and he was like, got on stage and was nervous. It was like nervous. Wow. What a show that was, man. Like it was a banger of a show. Like it was like J. Rue was popping, and then, you know, that was you know, and that's when he had already come out on the Gangstar record and stuff, and had, you know, his singles and record out. And that
Gangstar or that J. Rue Sunrises in the East is one of Premier's best. Oh God, it's so good.
Yeah, it's crazy. So because it's funny when you first talked like about like getting into metal stuff, but also like the early hip hop. It was the same thing for me, man. My first show that I ever went to was the Fresh Festival with like Fat Boys and Dougie Fresh. And
shit!
And then my second show was like Rat and Billy Squire, and then Motley Crue on Shout at the Devil tour, right? So it was the same type of thing, like just weird, manic, all over the place stuff. Like,
I think Fresh Fest came to Buffalo, but I was definitely not there, either too young or not able or still living in the woods.
Yeah.
But I did see Rat. Rat opened up. No, Bon Jovi opened up for Rat. I saw Motley Crue with YNT. Yeah. I saw Blue Oyster Cult. Couple of, not tons of those shows, but a couple of those at the place where the Sabres played, the Memorial Auditorium. That was pretty wild.
Yeah, I saw some of those, and then in like 7th grade, I found Suicidal Tendencies, and then it all changed. You know what I mean? So, like, but for a little bit, I was going to that stuff, right? But yeah, man, fuck yeah, dude. Anything else, like, you know, anything coming up? Any shows? Any tours? I know you're on like a little bit of hiatus now. Like, I know you said you're going to be playing Boston with Buried Alive in at that fest in early December, but anything else coming up?
Tara's going to Europe for just a week in 2 weeks, so late November. I've got that Buried Alive show. Like we just did a stretch of so many shows that were we have a nice break. Early next year in January, Tara has a couple shows in Southern California, but right now we're kind of just doing a couple sporadic things and enjoying our post for Insanity Recuperation.
Yeah.
And it sucks because I was gone for all the nice weather, and now it's going to be snowing, and I'll be in Buffalo, but I'm okay with that.
Home for the Buffalo weather, right? Yeah, it snowed in.
Oh yeah.
What did it seems like, I don't know, with everything that was going on with shutdowns and whatnot in the world and everything, like, start seeing all those shows in LA, like Under the Bridge, like all those outdoor shows and stuff. It seems like it's going fucking wild over there again.
I was gone for that, but I saw it just like you did. And I was, I was like, thank God I left LA, because I would have been at that show, and I'm not good with that many fucking crazy people around me. I would have been like, I have to be here, but I kind of miss being in my house.
Well, that's the trick of it, right? Like, I like going to shows still, and it's not a status or elitist thing, but I also like when it's my friends playing, so I can have like a safe place to hang out and back, and not like, and it's not like trying to not be in the crowd, but I just get weird social stuff now. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I just like having a little bit of room and breathing room and shit, like, and being able to chill, it's funny.
Yeah, for sure. And sometimes I think about people that go to some of these festivals in Europe. They go for a weekend, and they stay in a tent, and they watch 3 days of bands.
Forget that.
Like, I'm like, have to be there for like 40 minutes on stage, and then I don't have to be any part of it. I can't imagine it, but God bless them for fucking loving music that much.
Absolutely. Cool. Anything, I know you've probably got stuff going on, and I'm keeping you, and you don't want to talk about stuff on your time off. Anything else that we haven't talked about you think's important or anything?
No, I'm just gonna make some soup and watch the Steelers game, and I can't stay up late anymore. I fall asleep at like 11 o'clock now. It's crazy. But I appreciate you having me, and I'm glad you brought up that you were on Overkill Records. That made me happy. That's really cool.
Yeah, fuck yeah, man. So where can people find out, more about Terror or any other project? Actually, wait, before we stop, how did fucking World Be Free? Like, how did that pop off? Because that's an interesting one. I didn't mean to gloss over that. Like,
sure. So that was me in LA, and every band I've done, all the bands from Buffalo and Terror, all this like metallic, in your face mosh. The show isn't good. The show isn't good unless someone gets their nose broke. And I listened to all this like melodic stuff, and I just said I want to try to do something that's a little in the vein of like Dag Nasty, Gorilla Biscuits, with a little bit of melody. And Andrew from Strife, I went to him. The person that played guitar is my friend Joe, who's from Buffalo and was in my band Despair with, not my band, in the band Despair with me.
Yep.
Our band Despair. I know he can write great melodic hardcore, so I hit him up. He wrote a couple songs. I knew Sammy from Judge and Youth of Today and stuff.
Sammy from every New York band. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know what he was doing playing with me, because I'm not talented, and he is an amazing drummer. But Andrew hit him up, and he said he would be willing to do it. And he brought in Arthur from Gorilla Biscuits. And it was really cool. It was kind of doomed from the start, because everyone's so busy doing a million things in a million bands. But we put out, there's 2 records, World Be Free. We did a full length, and then like a 4 or 5 song. It's a 12-inch, but it's an EP.
Yep.
And it's really cool. And for me, it was like a breath of fresh air, and I actually hit some notes and sing a little bit, and then getting to play with Sammy, and on the second record, the bass player from Chain of Strength played on it, which is one of my all-time favorite bands. So just really cool. We got to play we played 10, 15 shows, and I got a message from Sammy recently, like a month ago, hey, if we write some songs, will you sing on them? I said, yeah, but I haven't heard a note yet. So
Yeah. Oh, I'm sure it's coming.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows?
Now, what was that like for you? Because obviously, you were known for having like one of like the harder voices in like hardcore, and to kind of spread your wings a little bit and go out there and like you said, hit some notes and everything. Was that like vulnerable for you to do that, or did that take like did you feel confident in doing that? Like how did that work out?
Luckily, I recorded the vocals with Nick, the drummer of Terror, and he's much more musical than me, times 100.
Yeah.
And I think he from like 20 years, he kind of knows my voice. And Sammy is really, really musical and smart too. So it was the two of them and me in the studio. And it took a little while to figure out what I could do and couldn't do. And I had recorded with Nick 100 times.
So there was a comfort there. You already felt comfortable.
Right. So even when I was doing terrible things and couldn't hit notes, and it just took a couple sessions to find out what I could do and couldn't do. And then once we found the comfort zone, it was off to the races. And it was really cool for me. Like, I'd really key on the bass guitar and hit these notes, and I could hear it in the headphones, and I'd be like, holy shit, I just actually sang. And Nick was like, dude, that was perfect. And it was really cool. And then you had Sammy kind of pushing me to try different things. And I'd be like, in my head, I'd be like, dude, that's the dumbest idea I've ever heard. But I'd try it out of respect to him. And then I'd come back and hear it the next day, and it would be super cool. And those are my favorite parts on the record, that if it was just me, or if I was like closed-minded, or if it wasn't someone I respected, I would have been like, dude, that idea is stupid.
Yeah.
So I've just learned that in the studio, anything can be. There would be times where people from Terror would do these like guitar noises, like squeaks and squeals and slides, and I'd hear them and they drive me crazy. And then you just realize, A, once it's mixed, you don't even hear it, and B, if you don't like it, you just press a button and it's gone.
Yeah.
So like, try everything and like experiment with things, and then those are the things that end up being. When we did the Keepers of the Faith record and Chad from Newfound Glory produced it, that the song "Keepers of the Faith," which is one of our biggest songs, has a fucking keyboard on it, or a keyboard.
Yeah.
No one knows that, and you can't hear it, but it adds to the dynamic. So you just got to be open minded and have some fun with it.
Absolutely, man. Absolutely. So yeah, man, where can people find out more about, you guys or social media, stuff like that? Give some plugs and everything so people can look at you. And I'll put them all in the show notes as well, so that people don't have to remember it if they're driving right now. You can go back and look at the notes and just click the links. Yeah,
I'm only on Instagram. So the Terror thing on Instagram is, I think, Terror Hardcore.
Okay.
And I have one that's called I Am Finally.
Okay.
But I know we got a Facebook and a Twitter. I'm not if you reach out to Terror on social media, you will not get me, because I misspell things and post things crooked, and it drives people in the band crazy. So they change the password and won't give it to me.
So you're not allowed to do posts. You have to.
Nope.
You're like the Trump. Like you got to go through through a committee, and they have to approve your Twitter messages now and stuff. Like.
This is true. This is very true.
Well, fuck yeah, man. Thank you for coming on. Don't hang up. I'm just gonna shut this off here. 1 second.